Welcome to Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living with your host, Rosalind Sadaka. Join Rosalind each week on a journey toward overcoming life's many challenges to achieve peace, empowerment, and positive transformation. It's time to relax, unwind, and transform your life with Rosalind Sadaka.
Welcome, everyone. This is Rosalind Sadaka, and you are listening to Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. I want to thank you for joining us today, and we are talking about a topic that anyone who is coping with divorce will be very interested in, and that's saving money on legal fees in divorce. I have with us a guest who is someone I have great respect for. He is a veteran divorce lawyer who has focused in recent years his attention on improving the divorce experience for spouses as well as their children. And he is the author of a book and a film and has done some really conscious, remarkable work in supporting families as they move through the divorce process. So I want to welcome you, Larry Sarezky.
Thank you, Roz. Thanks for having me.
So, Larry, you're a lawyer, and you have a great deal of material in your book about saving on legal fees. So first tell us the name of your book, and then let me ask you this. Isn't the best way to save on fees not to hire a lawyer?
Well, the name of the book is Divorce Simply Stated. It's been said that the best way to avoid attorney's fees is to avoid attorneys. I think I say that myself in the book. But it might not be the best way to save money. Going without a lawyer can cost you a lot of money, especially if your spouse is represented. Choosing the right lawyer for your case and using what that lawyer knows can more than justify the fees. But at the same time, we want to keep the fees down.
Yes.
So starting at the beginning, there are two important decisions in divorce, the two most important decisions. One is the kind of divorce you want, and the second is your choice of divorce professionals. And very quickly, you have a choice between alternative dispute resolution, like mediation. That's something that keeps you out of court, versus the traditional court-based divorce. And that's a conscious decision that you have. And it's really important for people to understand that they do have choices in divorce. It's not just a question of walking into a divorce lawyer's office and signing up and saying, okay, you take it from here. You do have choices. The second important choice is what divorce professionals you're going to use. That choice can save you a lot of money.
It certainly can. So tell me,
Yeah.
How do you make decisions about limiting your lawyer's role in the most conscious way?
Well, the first thing to know is that there are other divorce professionals out there besides lawyers who can be very helpful. Certified divorce and financial planners, divorce coaches, and other analysts can be very helpful, and they charge less than lawyers. They're not there to replace lawyers, but they can do some of the work that a lawyer will do and charge you less. So you need to be aware of that option. The second thing is that there are a number of factors that go into choosing a lawyer. For example, do you want to go with a lawyer who is a sole practitioner or a lawyer who is with a firm? And that can save you money. For example, if you go with a lawyer who's a member of a firm, that lawyer may have an associate who will go to court for a routine conference call and charge half of what the partner you hired charges. So that's a good thing. On the other hand, if you go with a lawyer who's a sole practitioner, you're going to have that lawyer. No one else is going to be involved in your case. But you can limit your lawyer's role by doing a number of things. The first thing is timing. You don't necessarily need a lawyer right away. There are some things that you can do by yourself. And again, if you have a divorce financial planner guiding you, you can do things like file for divorce yourself. The forms do that are online. Your state's court system will have those forms available. And if you have some guidance from another divorce professional besides a lawyer, you'll get that done a lot cheaper. Now, having said that, a word of caution. If there's some emergency or some issue that needs to be dealt with right away, you probably want to go right to a lawyer. That, for example, if you're afraid that your spouse is emptying bank accounts or you have some concerns about the kids, you may need to go right to a lawyer. So that's one way of timing, is one way to limit the fees. Another is what we call unbundled representation. The majority of states have this now. And what unbundled representation allows is for you to hire a lawyer to perform only specified tasks in your divorce. So that, again, if there's a routine status conference, that is, a judge puts your case on the calendar just to know what's going on in your case. Is it near settlement? Is there more discovery that needs to be done? That kind of thing. That's something that you can probably handle yourself. Now, it's not for everyone. Unbundled representation isn't for everyone, but people who feel comfortable going to court and answering those kinds of routine questions don't need to hire a lawyer or don't need to pay a lawyer to do it. So unbundled representation is definitely something to look into, to see what's available in your state. Again, using the less expensive professionals that I mentioned. And then lastly, learning how to partner effectively with your lawyer. I spend a fair amount of time in my book talking about how to be your own paralegal and how to participate in your own divorce in a way that will save you on fees. And don't forget, when you hire a lawyer, you're hiring a paralegal too. So say the lawyer charges $350 an hour or $400 an hour, and the paralegal charges $125 an hour. You can save a lot of those $125 by doing some of the tasks that a paralegal will ordinarily do, like gathering documents, organizing documents, and even analyzing documents. But again, you need a good relationship with your lawyer who can tell you what she needs from you and how she would like it to be done. So there's a range of things to save some serious dollars.
Well, this is definitely helpful already. You've provided a number of really useful insights about options that most times people don't think about. And I myself am a divorce and parenting coach, and so I provide one of those auxiliary services that working with attorneys to help parents make parenting and co-parenting decisions that can save some money and give parents more time in those kinds of decisions. They're being legally represented for all the important things in covering the case. So we're going to take a quick break. This is Rosalind Sadaka with the Child Centered Divorce Network. This show is Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. And when we come back, we're going to ask more from our guest, Larry Sarezky, about ways to save on legal fees in divorce.
This is Cece Schatz, and I'm an inspirational speaker, divorce, life, and transitional coach with a unique style of healing from within. With that, been here, done that approach to life. I hope you'll join me each and every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time with Going Solo with Cece, where we bring you educational, informative discussions through the devastation feelings of divorce to finding yourself and redefining your best life. We will take a lighthearted and candid approach to discussions on the journey of divorce, parenting, being single, relationships, dating, and yes, sex. So be sure to tune in every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time with Going Solo with Cece.
You're listening to WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, Singles Talk Radio Channel, where we take a lighthearted and candid approach to discussions on the journey of relationship loss, divorce, parenting, being single, relationships building, dating, and yes, sex. Join our listeners and begin living your best life.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Rosalind Sadaka with Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. Our guest today is divorce attorney Larry Sarezky, and he's sharing insights about saving money on legal fees in divorce, and they've been very helpful tips so far. And Larry, I know that there are certain questions that you should ask a lawyer about fees before hiring him or her. Can you give us some some suggestions about that.
Sure. The obvious first question is, what's your hourly rate? Most lawyers, the great majority of lawyers, do charge by the hour. So that's the first number you want to get. The hourly rate, however, and this is something that the great majority of people walking into a divorce lawyer's office for the first time do not know, is only part of the story. The other question to ask is, in what increments of an hour do you bill? And what that's about is this. Lawyers don't keep track of the exact number of minutes they spend on any task. They use billing increments. That's portions of an hour. Mm-hmm. Most of them charge 10% of an hour for anything they do. That's 6 minutes. Some of them charge 20%. That's 12 minutes. And so you can actually have a situation where a task, say you called your lawyer, had a 3-minute conversation, and your lawyer charges $400, but charges in increments of 10%. I'll do the math very quickly for you. That'll cost you $40, 10% of $400. Mm-hmm. If you had a lawyer who charged $300 an hour, but billed in increments of 20%, 12 minutes, it would actually cost you more, because they will charge you a minimum of 12 minutes for anything they do, whether it takes 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it is. So wow. That is an absolutely critical thing to know. And you don't want to find that out, sign your retainer agreement, and get a bill and say, okay.
You're not kidding. So the question is asking about billing increments and understanding just how much time is involved in each of those increments so you know what you're spending for the quickest minute of their time.
Right, right.
Said excellent. I'm glad you shared that with us.
Yeah, that's something that people just don't know about. And you know, what I tried to do in the book is talk about that stuff. The kind of the inside scoop on how attorneys bill, because people need to understand that.
Okay.
So there's some other things that you can do to keep the fees down. But you want to know about questions. Another question that you should ask is whether the rate that you're being charged is going to remain the same throughout the case. You don't want to get that letter that says, dear so-and-so, our costs have increased over the past year, and as a result, increasing my billing rate by $50 an hour and my paralegal's rate by $15 an hour. And you say, well, wait a minute, didn't I just sign an agreement? And then you go back and you look at your retainer agreement, and it has a little sentence in there that says, we're free to raise our rates when and if necessary. So It's not unreasonable for you to say in an initial consultation with a lawyer, listen, you've told me you charge $350 an hour. Can we have an agreement that that rate is going to remain your rate throughout the case, or if not throughout the case, at least say for 9 months, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's an unreasonable question to ask.
I agree. And can you talk about retainers?
Yes. The thing to remember about retainers is make sure that they are refundable. Sometimes divorce cases end before they're expected to end, and you might be owed some of your retainer back unless your retainer agreement has a sentence that says in it, your retainer is non-refundable. Fewer lawyers do that. There's a time when a lot of lawyers did it. I think fewer lawyers do it now, but you want to make sure that there's nothing in there. In fact, the retainer letter agreement that you get from your lawyer, and you should get something in writing that covers all this, should have a sentence in there that says, if your case is completed before your retainer is fully expended, we will refund to you whatever hasn't been spent. That's an important sentence.
Oh, yes, it certainly is. Well, before I ask you any other questions, I just wanted to make sure that people had a way of finding you and accessing you and your excellent book, Divorce Plain and Simple, which I've read and I think is one of the best books on the subject because it's not only comprehensive, there's a sense of humor in the book, and it really covers things from the client's perspective, from caring about what happens to the individuals involved in the divorce. So I highly recommend it. as well as your film. So why don't you let us know about how people can access more about these wonderful products?
Well, okay. The book you can find at divorcesimplystated.com, or it's available on Amazon. You can just go to Amazon and search Divorce Simply Stated. The film, I should say very quickly, the film is intended to prevent a spouse from pursuing a child custody battle that's unnecessary. And if you're in that situation where you think that your spouse is fight over the kids, this film shows what happens to the kids in those battles. It's from the kids' standpoint. It's a story. It's 25 minutes long, and we've seen it be pretty effective. It's called Talk to Strangers, and that's available at childcustodyfilm.com.
And I apologize for misstating the title of your book, Divorce Simply Stated. So I apologize for that. We want to make sure that people find the right book because it's an excellent book. Larry, let me. Oh, good. let me ask you about any other ways to save on fees once you've hired an attorney.
Okay, thank you for asking that, because there are a number of them. First of all, try to avoid petty arguments with your spouse, your soon-to-be ex-spouse. I remember getting a phone call from a client who said, "Larry, my dog's teeth are covered with tartar." And I said, and you're calling me because, well, you know, the dog follows the kids, and when they go over to my spouse's house, they're not using that special treat that gets rid of tartar, and you know the dog comes back with all this. You know, and I said, wait a minute. You have to understand that the court system is and even in mediation, the system is set up to deal with only certain issues, the more important issues. Now, yes, that can be annoying. I mean, you know, lots of times the clothes don't come back with the kids the way they should after a visit, or their school books, and it can be immensely annoying. But try to avoid those squabbles, because if lawyers get involved, it's going to cost you a lot of money.
Absolutely. Pick your battles.
Really. I tell my clients there are plenty of battles to be had. You don't need to come up with additional ones.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing you can do, and I always advise this, wait, unless you have an emergency, wait until you have two or three things to talk to your lawyer about. Because again, if you have something very brief and it takes 3 minutes, you're going to get charged for 6 minutes anyway. So wait till you have a couple of things to discuss before calling your lawyer. And don't always call the lawyer. There are some things that the clerical staff can handle. For example, whether something's been scheduled in court or whether a letter has been received from opposing counsel, that kind of thing. And, you know, if you call your lawyer and ask that question, what's the lawyer going to do? She's going to ask the clerical staff anyway. So you might as well just go there and hopefully avoid getting charged, or at least get charged at the paralegal's rate rather than the lawyer's rate.
Mm-hmm.
And then I mentioned before becoming your own paralegal. And in the book I talk about how you can perform these tasks. I mentioned gathering documents, organizing documents. Instead of having a paralegal call your accountant and ask for your tax returns, you do it. They need the legal description of your house. It's easy to obtain in the clerk's office of your county seat in the real estate documents division. So, you know, you can be doing that rather than somebody from the lawyer's office going over there and then charging you for their time. The last thing is ask questions, and this is really important. You're likely to told things by your lawyer that you don't understand, and there's no shame in that, certainly. This is a new, foreign, and not particularly pleasant world you're entering. So make sure that you understand what you're being told, because if you're not, you're going to wind up making a mistake, having a misunderstanding, or having to ask the same question several times and be charged for it several times. You know, be as efficient as you can.
Larry Sarezky, you have, in such a short time, delivered so many useful tips and valuable advice for people. I could see easily how people can save a considerable amount of money just taking the initiative and being more empowered in their divorce and understanding the process better as explained it. So this is really wonderful, and I also highly recommend your book, Divorce Simply Stated, because it is filled with those kinds of insider tips and insights that really will make the process easier and smoother and a happier ending for everyone involved, which is what I know you want and I want and we certainly want for clients. Are there any last thoughts you have before we have to close?
Yeah, I think one important thing to remember is that knowledge is power. And part of what I call the 3 a.m. jitters, the stuff that wakes you up at night, can't do anything about it, it just preys on your mind, is fear of the unknown. Divorce becomes less scary the more you learn about it. So it is important to educate yourself about the process. And, that's why I wrote the book. But there's also material available at your local courthouse that can be helpful. And what you'll discover is, the more you learn, is that you do have choices about the kind of divorce you want, the kind of divorce professionals you need, and how you want to use them.
And just to add, if you visit childcentereddivorce.com, you'll find a wealth of information about divorce and parenting and co-parenting to help you make the best decisions if you have children and are going through a divorce or have already been divorced. So I want to thank you again for this valuable information, Larry Sarezky, and I invite our listeners to join us every week for Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living. This is Rosalind Sadaka, founder of the Child-Centered Divorce Network and Divorce and Parenting Coach, and you're listening to WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. Goodbye to all for now.